Hello everybody and welcome to Monday the 15th of June's Assembly. Lovely to see you all back for another week, week 3 of this half term. Things for you to think about this week is practicing and preparing for the talent show. If you would like to be involved in the talent show, you've got I think 3 weeks to get ready before you have to submit your video. Please do not submit your video for your class dojo. Please send it to me, get your grown-ups to send it to me. We will then put all of the talent videos together, and maximum of 2 minutes everyone for your talent videos, and then we will all sit and watch them at home and at school as if we're watching Wickham Court's Got Talent, the television show. I will leave details at the end of the assembly for you about it, and it was also in Friday's newsletter. Something a little different for you this week is a little good news story, and it is connected to our World Ocean Day that was celebrated last Monday and that we talked about in Assembly on Friday as well. And that is that rare turtles are laying more eggs this year than for a long time. Here's a picture of the turtle for you. Now the rare turtle is a hawksbill sea turtle, and it has laid at least 80 eggs on a beach in the island of Koh Samui in Thailand. The number of hawksbill sea turtles have fallen by about 80% in the last 100 years because of loss of habitat, which means that their homes are being taken away for tourist industry, that sort of thing, and also people hunting them. But this year, Thailand has recorded the largest number of nests of leatherback sea turtles in more than 20 years, and they believe that the reason is because of fewer people on the beach because of the coronavirus. As I said last week, when we're looking to how to view and see the world, even though we would all agree that coronavirus has not been a great thing for the world, there are great things that have come from it that we can see and see the positives, and actually sea turtles having more young this year and having undisturbed habitats to lay their wildlife is something that's come from it. We wouldn't want it to happen and we wouldn't want coronavirus, but it has happened, and actually a wonderful positive for the sea turtles has come from it. So last week it was World Ocean Day, so this week's story I've chosen is connected to that, and it's called Nelson's Dangerous Dive. And it's a wonderful book, and it's been written by the Wild Tribe Heroes. They've got a series of books that help us to understand what's happening in the world, like we were doing before when we looked at how important trees were. And there is one about the sea turtles, like the good news story I was talking about. And there's also one about the orangutans and deforestation, which we learnt about last half term as part of forest school. So in this book we've got some creatures that feature, and one of those is the whale, and there are some fantastic facts about whales that I would like to share with you. Did you know there are 90 different kinds of whales? Blue whales are the largest animal that has ever lived, and it's even bigger than a dinosaur. It can grow up to 30 metres long and weigh up to 136 tonnes. Its heart is as big as a small car, and have a think about this, if you could fit a person of any size on your tongue, I don't think we could, but a blue whale could fit 50 people standing on its tongue. Now I'm going to pause here because I'm going to put a video in, children, for me to show you just how long 30 metres is. So children, let's see how big 30 metres is, the size of a full-grown blue whale. So far I've only gone 3.2 metres. That's the end of my tape measure. That's 5 metres. Let go. the length of a blue whale. It's long, isn't it? One of the other facts we've got here is that whales are mammals, which mean they come to the surface every few minutes to breathe air. They can hold their breath, but a whale can hold its breath for up to 90 minutes. And let's compare this. A human's longest human breath held was 24 minutes. When whales sleep, they shut down half of their brain and stay near the surface with their blowhole above the water. Whilst one half of their brain sleeps, the other half makes sure the whale keeps breathing air whilst resting or slowly swimming. And the last fact about whales is all whales are very noisy. They talk to each other using squeaks, groans and sighs. Whales are the largest animals in the world. Their underwater sounds can travel great distances, sometimes as far as 6,000 kilometres, from one side of the ocean to the other. Well, I hope you enjoy this story. This is called Nelson's Dangerous Dive. Mayday, mayday, mayday! We need help quickly. Our boat is sinking in the storm. The crew knew their old fishing boat was in urgent danger, but calmly waited for the rescue teams and helicopters. As the crew were winched to safety, they looked down and saw the heavy fishing nets pulling the back of the boat down into the crashing waves. As the bow of the boat started to rise up, the long nets began to unravel, slowly dragging the boat under water, where it settled on the rocky seabed below. Over many years, nature began to reclaim the boat, turning it into a magnificent reef which was home to many different types of sea creature. Smooth, gliding sharks circled the wreck, chasing the fast-swimming fish that darted around the wheelhouse, whilst crabs, lobsters and octopus found a home. Can you see them? There's an octopus there. Can you spot a crab? I can see an eel. Can you see a lobster? One day a curious young whale named Nelson spied the wreck looming out of the sandy depths below. Astonished to see such a strange and colourful sight, he took a deep breath. With his impressive tail he dived deep into the shadows. Deeper and deeper Nelson dived as the colours around him gradually faded. Once his eyes grew accustomed to the gloom, he could see the hulk of the boat appearing beneath him, the nets trailing. Can you see the nets here? Nelson began to explore the wreck when out of the corner of his eye he saw something flash past in the darkness. As he turned to investigate, his huge tail stretched out behind him and was captured in the nets, bringing his whole body to a shuddering stop. Thrashing about and getting more and more entangled with every movement, Nelson had to use all his determination to break free of the terrible ropes and nets made of plastic which bound him to the wreck. Nelson used his huge strength to power through the water, and the whole wreck started shifting around on the seabed as he desperately tried to escape. Suddenly, with a loud snap, the rusty chains holding the ropes broke free, and he found himself floating sluggishly upwards. Nelson was now almost completely entwined in the nets, floating up in slow spirals until he reached the surface, finally breathing the air. Lying still and resting on the surface, he managed to find enough strength to raise his tail and slap it down hard on the water. Signalling for help, splash, splash, splash. The tremendous sound was quickly noticed by some nearby tourists. They saw Nelson's enormous and powerful body wrapped in heavy green fishing nets and utterly powerless to free himself. He urgently needed help. Bravely, the people decided they had to help. Using their boat knives, they cut away the nets one strand at a time. As each rope fell away, Nelson felt the pressure around his body start to ease. Leaning dangerously over the edge of the boat, surrounded by nets and at the mercy of the powerful whale, the people had a huge task ahead of them. The giant nets were so tightly wound around Nelson's body, the knives seemed to barely make a dent in their work. Yet slowly and surely the nets became looser, until finally his enormous tail was untangled. Nelson's long fins were now released, and he realised he could swim. He started to head further out to sea, pulling the boat and the tourists behind him. His rescuers were in extreme danger now, should Nelson decide to dive. They had no choice but to be towed by him as he swam on, before tiring and stopping. Quickly now, aware of the danger they were still in, the people excitedly cut the few remaining strands of the net from his tail, and he was at last completely free. As he disappeared quickly out of sight, they celebrated their incredible encounter with a beautiful creature. Just imagine that, children, being that close to a whale. Suddenly a huge shape came up from beneath the water as Nelson burst out of the sea into the most spectacular breach. Great big splashes of glistening water cascaded around him as his magnificent body rejoiced in its freedom. Time and again he dived, only to come up again and shower them with a spray. The captain of the tourist boat knew that if the nets that they'd released from Nelson were left in the water, more animals would get trapped, so they carefully pulled them all into the boat. They also called a local expert diving group to help clear any that were still in the water. The team of divers arrived quickly, carrying out safety checks and surveys and removing the remaining nets. Fishing boats have many ropes and nets made for different types of plastic, and the wreck still had a large net tangled around it. The divers were all highly trained to remove these. Using special equipment and knives, the divers cut away at the nets, sending them carefully up to the surface to be pulled into the waiting boat. Every piece of rope or net they removed would save another turtle, dolphin, whale, octopus, crab or lobster from becoming trapped. See the special equipment they're using here. At last the nets were brought up to the dive boat and the divers started to head for home, when suddenly they heard an almighty splash just behind them. Looking round, they saw Nelson slapping his enormous tail once more, happily leaping out of the sea with a new friend. He was finally free of the nets that had been lost at sea, free to breach and dive again. One of the important messages in this book is about the rubbish and the plastic in the oceans. And we've talked about this a little bit before, trying to help, trying to reduce. And I mentioned last week about just little things like not using plastic drinking straws. We have in our house copper drinking straws now, and a little carry case. It's those little things that make the difference. And here we go, some information. So ghost fishing nets. The nets that trapped Nelson are called ghost fishing nets. They are fishing nets that have been lost or abandoned at sea. This is a huge problem in our ocean, as many nets are made using plastic rope instead of natural, so they last for hundreds of years if left in the ocean. Nets and other fishing gear can trap animals like whales, sharks and dolphins. What can be done? Lost or found nets can be reported to the Global Ghost Gear Initiative, and they can be brought back to land and recycled into things like clothing and kayaks. If you do go fishing or crabbing, make sure you take all of your rubbish and plastic home. Fishing nets and pots that catch lobsters should be tagged and returned home safely. And there are special bins at harbours so that fishermen can put any old and found nets in them. It's really important as well that when we choose what fish to eat, that we try and choose fish that are caught using lines rather than nets, because that again reduces the chance of the wrong animals being caught. So let's have a look. Here's some of the creatures. Just going to go back to the beginning so you can see some of the other ones as well. There we go. Let's do this day in history. So we're going to do Tuesday, which is the 16th of June, and this week in history on the 16th of June 1963 was the first woman to travel to space. Her name was Valentina, and she became the first woman to travel to space, and she was a Russian astronaut. She took off in the spacecraft Vostok 6 and spent 2 days in space, orbiting the Earth 49 times. The spacecraft was accidentally programmed to drift into space forever instead of returning to Earth, but luckily the scientists managed to change the directions and she safely made it back to Earth. So this day in history is 16th of June 1963. Let's do our word of the week, and we're going to take it from this book again, the Dictionary of Difficult Words, and I'm just going to do a random selection this time. So I'm opening it to, wow, there's some selection on here. We've got snuggery, sockdolager, somnambulist, squamous, spaghettification. Wow, there's a real choice on here. What am I going to go with? I'm going with spelunking. Spelunking is a noun, and spelunking is the hobby of exploring caves. So if you enjoy to explore a cave, you are a spelunker. So spelunking, what a fantastic word that is. So if you want to learn new words and enjoy words, I will do a word of the week every week, don't forget. But also I'd highly recommend this book. It's a great book for learning new and interesting words. All that leaves me left to do is to wish you a fantastic week, whether you're working at home or at school. And don't forget to join us live on Friday for our Friday Awards Assembly, where we give out awards, highlight some particular works of the week, and talk about something that's going on in the world, and start thinking about what talent you would like to share. Have a good week.